could very well be female, could very well be transgender, could very well be, yeah, could be either of those things. And then the men, I'm fascinated by the expression of polyamory in this, of bisexuality, happy bisexuality. I'm recording this on Bisexual Visibility Day. And then the colors are interesting. I'm also fascinated that it's at night, because I'm reading this fascinating book right now about how we create these sexual communities and spaces, and they tend to happen at night, but we can carry that with us into the day. And it looks like while it is night, we've got this beautiful moon, and it's hard to tell here, but it could also be a sun. It's very yellow. This could be the expression of the mix between bringing our sexual selves from sexual safe space into a day, like being a day walker, and trying to understand the differences between our true selves and the self that we represent to other people. I love this card. I'm fascinated by it. All right, King of Wands. King of Wands has this beautiful lion in it, a lot of birds behind. He appears to be of either mixed or Asian descent. Even some of this gives rise to the Asian concepts, some of the design of things. But it could be, as we think of Asia, we think a lot of like China and Japan, for example, but Asia is much bigger than that. So we could be talking about Eastern European, where there's influence from Asia into this other continent. To this other country. So I'm fascinated by the mix and blend of different cultures, including these partridges. I think those are partridges. There's a little chameleon. There's a turtle. This is a fascinating way to think of the King of Wands. I've always thought of the King of Wands as a very sexual being anyway, so I'm surprised that this King of Wands is clothed, though I think it's an interesting concept when you think about our leaders having more experience. Our leaders being those who may choose to, even the Queen of Diamonds has some clothes on them. They may choose to cover themselves in a purposeful way rather than covering themselves in shame. Temperance is also a young male, naked. He's got this water. It feels very narcissistic if he were staring at himself. It's a very narcissism, what is Narcissus? It looks like the story of Narcissus, just without him staring at himself in the pool. And he's moving his water back and forth, but he's also got a fire necklace on, some flowers behind him, and a foot in the water, which would be a traditional experience. I think it would be interesting if he was washing himself, and what that could mean, but then we're getting a little bit to star territory there for me. So I think this is an interesting concept. I think the colors of it are beautiful, and it evokes the concept of temperance. I do kind of wish his clothes were somewhere, because that would be the other balance to the nudity, is that the clothes existed somewhere. But I still think it's gorgeous. I think it's a beautiful card. We have these 4 pool boys hanging out. One getting ready to jump off into the water. They're all hanging out luxuriously and just enjoying each other's company. This is a very non-sexual card, and yet there's a sexual tension that is a beautiful community building thing. It doesn't have to be about sex, but there is some degree of that there. And I think that's something that's unique to especially a queer community or a gay community, where you can be naked and be in the sexual space but not have to act on a sexual urge. And it just builds relationship and community in a way that other people wouldn't experience or know. I am also interested in the fact that there is action in this Four of Wands. And traditionally, we might think of the Four of Wands as celebratory, as marriage. This could very well be two couples enjoying and celebrating the fact that they had, one of them got married, or maybe all four of them are married and they're in a polyamory relationship. There's also this beautiful little kitten in the corner that I didn't see before. He's too cute. The star is really beautiful, gorgeous color. Flamingo, the star up here. Stretching, we've got a bit of a dancer pose. And very much the body of a dancer, which I think is interesting, especially if you're related to the world. The lilies are beautiful. And he just seems to be above things and one with and a part of the world that's around him. I often think of the star as coming back to self, especially after something may have fallen apart with the tower. We come back to self and understanding truly who we are. And I think there is a beauty in the unabashed and unashamed stance in space. And I think flamingos kind of have that too. They're like, look at me, I'm beautiful and I'm pretty. And this is a declaration of self and love of self, and I think that's gorgeous. The Man of Wands is carrying someone who could be injured. There's another man behind him carrying a rabbit. There's a lot of rabbits, does, yearlings. There may be someone on the horse, I can't tell, and they're walking away from fire, from this forest that is on fire. And so there is a sense of urgency and need to care for and save those who can't care for and save themselves. This is not normally how I think about a Knight of Wands card, and I'm really fascinated by where this is taking me. Because he could walk right back into the fire if he's not paying attention, or he can drive out. And is the quest really to save someone that he loves, or is he just saving someone who could potentially be dying? And who started the fire? I think this is a cool card. We've got a standard expectation around the wands coming up and the defensive stance. He's also in a very tight space where there's sunlight behind him, but this is a very defensive state. What's interesting to me is that while these other swords may be coming at him, he's not paying any attention to the other swords. He's looking far and away. So it's interesting to me, and I think it would be interesting to have this come up in a reading to see where the gaze appeared to be, to determine what state of defensiveness the reading was trying to imply. Because it's major and it's 3. This protector has all of these geese, which have the tendency to be really, really temperamental and mean, but they all are fine hanging out and waiting for something to eat, which he seems to be sharing with them. He's got a sensibility about him that seems very Mayan-ish. Like his ear, it's hard to see, but it looks like it had been pierced, but it doesn't have the gauge or the spacer. It's got some beautiful arm jewelry, and there are more birds in the background. And he's in front of this huge field of wheat. So abundance exists, and there's more than enough for everyone. And yet he's so thin. Birds appear to be migrating back rather than away, but they could be migrating away depending on the reading. I think it's interesting to have the movement of the birds in the background and how that might talk about shifting seasons or experiences. 6 of Swords. We're used to seeing 6 of Swords with usually 2 bodies. Actually, no, it's 3. The ferryman and the child and the mother, if we're looking at the Rider-Waite, and you're not quite sure if they're going or coming, and there's a whole bunch of swords. In here, these 3 appear to be going, to possibly going to an island or coming from one. We can't quite tell. The experience is that someone is carrying these two men. This ferryman is carrying these two men either towards an experience or from one. And just what that experience might be is fascinating, because it could appear here in a scrying sort of instance in some of these imagery in the lake, or it could very well be regulated to the surrounding cards. I think it's beautiful. Very, what I want to say, Green Man type of feel. We've got all of these goats, so as a card that we often relate to Aries, not surprising with all of these goats. He is strongly in charge, certainly comfortable and well-fed, and in the mountains, though the mountains continue to get larger and more prominent behind him, so we still have that mountain feel that we'll see in something like the Rider-Waite. And the color in this, when this gets lighter, it's already beautiful. I can only imagine how gorgeous it will be when it's lighter. Nine of Swords, where we usually see someone in a Rider-Waite laying in a bed, they're kind of worried, and there's 9 swords in the background over them. Here we have a young man who is near what appears to be he's like on a deck, maybe. It doesn't appear to be an altar, but he's on a deck, and he also just kind of seems generally melancholy. But he's also clothed, like he's wearing a shirt. He's not wearing any pants, maybe some underwear, but he's wearing a shirt, and clothing here seems to be a symbol of discomfort, a symbol of shame, a symbol of not being fully in one's own body. And the whole area that he's in just seems kind of depressed. So I'm fascinated by this. I think it's an interesting interpretation. Two of Wands is not on the list. Two of Wands. I think this is. I find this funny because I'm only assuming where the other wand is. Still standing at on the precipice of a castle-like space. We've got all this water, and thinking about how things are gonna get going out there. So Two of Wands, King of Wands. Quite the journey to take this bundle. It'll be quite the journey if he falls as well, so maybe he shouldn't have tried to carry so much and taken more trips instead of one, but we all carry too many grocery bags back from the car, don't we? The artistry of this, the color of this is beautiful, and I love the journey, and I love the journey because at the top he's trying to keep this fire going. It's not like he doesn't have a goal. King, again, is clothed. He's got this beautiful bowl in the background. This feels very Spaniard in its way. Grape leaves, reminiscent of the orange. I love this big open field. Yeah, it's a globe. He's also got a plate of like what looks like dates. So he's got things that are expensive. World at his feet, expensive fruit, this virile bowl behind him. Interestingly, this is not on the list of things that needs to be changed. This is one giant phallus with a man reaching up to... Is the fire on his stick? I think he's like going like this with a stick with fire on it. And someone's finally addressed that every Ace of Wands is one big penis. Interesting to me, because we're still in the... You think of the Nine of Wands and a traditional rider, you've got the wands behind, and a guy standing there with a stick, and he's bandaged in some way. This gentleman is also bandaged in multiple places. However, his protector, rather than that stave, is this beautiful panther. And he's also got that Mayan type of feel. I can't wait to see the book about this and find out more about the ethnicity behind the individuals. Who knows? Three of Wands. All right, this is the last card that I have to share. Three of Wands. So we're seeing the ships go out still. He's there on the edge of water as expected. He's got a dog with him, and he's younger. He's also dressed to some degree.